It is the latest and newest model of the ever-iconic Valkyrie series, sporting golden armor and shining the holy light of justice on anyone that she deems an enemy. It is VAL05, Alba Noel, with the kit of Kernel, Armor Drain, Needle Guard, Biped Legs, and the leg ability of Barrage, which grants the anti-jammer effect, which is negating anti-air and sea weaknesses to self when charging Metaforce. Now, as the latest installment in the Valkyrie type series, it honestly was kind of expected right from square one that she was going to serve as a very well-devoted all-rounder type, much akin to Brunhild, to Noel, and even pretty prime as the original Valkyrie type. Alba Noel is most certainly no exception to that. But strangely enough, instead of taking inspiration from Brunhild, which is the model prior to her, this model seemed to take inspiration from the more iconic model of the series, which is VAL03. Kernel on the head part is a support-based skill that, once activated, will grant a stack of Conceal to all allies, which is 50% to their evade stat, as well as negating any AoE or pierce damage effects that for one hit, of course unless it is removed by someone using a radar sight type skill. In addition to this, however, Kernel will also grant a stack of stealth to Alba Noel herself, which will make her entirely untouchable for her next cooldown and heat phase, her next turn basically, which also allows her to bypass any active shields that are in play and attack exactly who she wants, entirely unhindered by anyone that might stand in her way. Armor Drain on the right arm is a skill we have not seen too terribly often and fairly recent, but it's still a fairly nasty skill all the same, and simply explain that upon attacking the enemy, you will steal up to about 30%, I believe, or so, of the damage that you inflict, and heal yourself with heal yourself with a percentage of what you inflicted. This will give Alba Noel just a little bit of a ground in the sake of HP coverage and HP sustain, which will allow her already very bulky kit to stay relatively healthy at any given time, in addition to dealing some pretty hefty damage at any time she's on the field. Needle Guard on the left arm is a defense-based skill that basically serves as how counter skills used to work in the older games. And simply explained, while Alba Noel sits on the line for one charge, which is the only real the drawback to this, she will counter any attack, shooting or melee, back to sender at the 50% damage reflection. Now, of course, because this is a basic shield, not a meta change type shield, this does mean that she is also susceptible to anyone that brings destroy or any kind of destroy type of variant to the field. So a little bit of caution is advised if you do plan to make use of this. And in addition, it also only gives you one charge, such as, say, Perfect Guard or any Mirror or Counter Guard, which gives you 2 charges. Needle Guard, in trade of being able to reflect any attack, minus the ones mentioned, only gives you 1. So you will have to repeatedly use this one over and over, and there will be some moments where you have to juggle her cooldown and heat phase to make sure that no one gets punished in the moments where she's trying to prep her next defense stance. Biped Legs means that she'll have pretty solid coverage across all terrains at very diverse coverage in terms of terrain mastery, and when it comes to numbers across the board, much like her predecessors as well when it comes to being a Valkyrie, she is relatively well-rounded in terms of power, heat, and especially so with armor. And in terms of armor, she's packing about 43, almost 4,400 there for that head, about just shy of 4,100 there for that right arm, just about 4,200 for that shield, and about 4,800 for the legs. So very, very healthy as an all-rounder with a very heavy emphasis on defense and overall survivability between the high armor and the armor drain. In addition to this, she's also packing over 1650 for melee resist, which means she can most certainly hold her own up close and personal. But a shoot resist of 883, almost 900, it's not terrible, but she will take just considerably higher damage from incoming shooters that try to keep her distance and keep her busy from afar. But she does make up for this remarkably well with the mobility of 924 for very, very good speed, And an evade of 1160 means she's going to have some very good coverage of dodging or grazing when she's not trying to tank blows in trade of enemies. Now, much like her previous predecessor of Noel, Alba Noel is also capable of meta-changing into a sword or lance-based form. This one, it looks like, though, taking a page out of Sonic Stag's book, but given that it was designed by Fujioka Kenki, that, of course, is kind of to be expected. In this form, she exchanges her kit out entirely for a dominantly melee-based nuking kit, with an impressive skill set of Hyper Charge Blade, Punishment, Terminate, Flight Legs, and the leg ability of Elusive, which grants a damage reduction up to about 20 to 30% if the user's evade is higher than the attacker's. Now, as you see here by that impressive evade at almost 2500, that's going to be pretty tough to beat. So unless you're already fighting somebody like a very powerful sea-based leg or a very high agile flight leg, there's a good chance that elusive ability is going to kick in very easily and almost constantly anytime that she's on the field. Hyper Charge Blade is basically just a stronger version of Noel Drive A of Charge Blade, where it'll have a much higher damage modifier at about ×3 whatever your charge gauge is, but instead it'll take a staggering up to 15% of the user's charge gauge when attacking. So you'll have a much higher base damage, but you'll also be eating more charge to do it. But with an impressive base power of just shy of 1860 there, even without a charge, it's going to be a pretty impressive hit right from start. Punishment on Drive B is a more kind of ties back into her role as a mixed range and kind of a ailment fighter to a degree, tying back to her roots. But this time, she has access to one of 5 different ailments at random when attacking an enemy. That can be anything from fire, to Metaphor Seal, to thunder, to even something like wave or something similar to that. In addition to this, it also gets a damage modifier of ×1.5 if you are attacking somebody from the front in their hate phase. However, if you are attacking someone in their cooldown phase, you will instead only be dealing half damage. The one of 5 ailments at random, though, is not affected by the enemy's position when attacking them. Drive C of Terminate is basically how Destroy used to work in the older games, where it doesn't matter what part you target, it has a high percentage, if not guaranteed, to break the part it's targeting if it attacks a foe in cooldown, if their back is turned to you. If the opponent is facing you, it will simply be a normal attack, nothing special. Flight Legs, much like her predecessor of Noel, means she's going to have very impressive speed and evade at her advantage, and as mentioned, having an evade at nearly 2500 is already off to a good start. And a mobility of over 1100, almost just shy of 1150 as well, very, very good, and par for the course with Flight Legs. A melee resist of 1586, almost 1600, is pretty much just shy of where she was at before, just a little bit better. But a shoot resist of almost 1100 is a very considerable improvement, though. So this will give her a little bit more of a durability while she's changed, in case she's fighting anyone that likes to stay at a distance. All this being said, though, as a pure set score, I very easily have to rate Alba Noel a very well-rounded 8 out of 10. Despite having a very diverse kit between a support skill, 4 different melee skills, a defense skill, and 2 completely different leg abilities with 2 completely different passives, she synergizes with herself remarkably well. Kernel, if you need that conceal effect to help kind of keep everyone on their toes and negate any pierce or AoE effects and keep her untouchable. Armor Drain if you want to keep her particularly healthy. Needle Guard if you want to take a counter stance. But a lot of her charm is going to be coming from her leg ability in biped mode and her drives in particular, as Barrage grants her a negation of anti-air weaknesses for up to 2 hits, which, wouldn't you know it, she transforms into a flight leg, which already synergizes and covers for a lot of her weaknesses remarkably well. As mixed parts, unfortunately, because a lot of what Alba Noel brings to the field is because she is a pure set, I do have to grade her considerably lower at a 6.5 out of 10, given the fact that even though Kernel, Armor Drain, and Needle Guard are not terrible skills and her bipedal legs are actually pretty solid, a lot of what she brings to the table is just kind of there, and her leg ability is going to be entirely wasted because it's reliant and kind of expecting you to transform into a sea or a flight-based form so that you can make use of that anti-air, anti-sea negated weakness.